Hello everybody, today is January 13th, it's roughly 4:30 a.m. and today we're going to start Richard's Trash Bikes, where we're going to be walking around 50 miles and picking up trash around our local wooden parks. It is currently 6:30 and we are at the top of Microwave in Claremont, California. We are in the Los Angeles National Forest picking up some trash. We have a sizable amount from about 15 minutes of work.
So we're currently about 4 hours into our walk.
Yeah,
We've
10 miles in.
10 miles, so 20%, and right now we're going to head onto Mount Baldy Road
Pick
and
up
go
some
and pick up
trash.
some trash.
Alright, so we come out from the trails onto Mount Baldy Road, go to the first turnout, we walk around, we just see the trash within the turnout, and then we look over the side of this slope right here, and covered in trash.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of trash out on the trails, and it's sad that people would just think that it's an easy way to just dispose of their trash when they could easily just carry it out with them. Because all that does is that it affects the environment in a negative way. Not only does it look bad, but then it can also be harmful for the wildlife that's out there.
I think people's habits that have to change.
It's also kind of sad that the government has to enforce rules and people don't do it just because it's the right thing to do.
We just finished our second turnout. We maybe got half of the trash down there, not all of it, but my grandpa's living in the truck right now with 6 or 7 trash bags. We're going to the next turnout now. Officer Evans came and told us that he was concerned for our safety and would rather we not go up and down this steep turnout so that we don't die or I break a leg and then he has to come get us. Kayla is going to come pick us up, who is our other colleague working on a project with us, and we're going to come pick up all of this trash that we have collected thus far and take it to a house, and we're going to sort through all of the trash.
It is currently January 14th, the day after we did the trash pickup on Mount Baldy Road. It is about 3:15 p.m. and we're about to sort through all the garbage behind me, and yeah.
We're sorting all of the garbage that we found. Well, it's hard because I think most of the stuff that we find is not categorizable or basically recyclable at all. and there's only like a small percentage of the things that we find that are actually able to be like sorted into like glass bottles or plastic bottles that can be recycled.
For this project, we sorted items by categorizing them. So we put whole bottles together, and then broken bottles in another pile, and then metal cans with each other, and then miscellaneous papers and plastics with each other, which were separated from the plastics that could be recycled. The recycling plant that we will go to sometime in the future only accepts scrap metals, glass bottles, numbers 1 through 7 plastics, and then certain metal cans as well. So we think only a small fraction of this will actually be recyclable in the end.
We have 159 glass bottles, 34 plastic bottles, and 56 aluminum cans.
Possibly less than a quarter of what we ended up bringing in, so 75% of what we brought in will not be able to be recycled and may not even be able to be used for the art project. So going forward, we're going to take what can be recycled to a local recycling center, and the rest will be given to some students who are working with us to make an art piece that will either contribute to the community or our school. And the other stuff that is not able to be reused or recycled will be going to a landfill. What we learned through all of this is that out of what we were able to pick up, only a small fraction of it was actually able to be recycled, and this is just a small portion of the waste that humans produce, and it was really shocking to see just how much of it there was in the environment.
Hello everybody, we're back again. Today is January 15th, around 2 o'clock. It's been 2 days since we dug up all the trash, and we're here at the recycling center, A1 Recycling Center in Upland, and we're about to see what we can recycle from what we pulled out of the turnouts.
So, why do you personally come here to recycle objects?
To meet new people and to broaden my intelligence, because I noticed when I was recycling by myself that I wasn't getting every little can, and now that I have a team, that we watch each other's stuff and we get every little can, and we keep our bills together like that. It's just, I don't want to be a burden on them, so I don't recycle every day, so I got to make some kind of free gesture towards them, you know. And that's pretty much it. Drop in and go. Like pick apart.
about around 150 to 200 customers in a busy day.
Alright, so we just got done at the recycling center. We filmed a few clips that you guys will probably see before this, but in the end we got $15 for the plastic, glass, and aluminum cans, and we got $1.28 for all the scrap metal we found yesterday at the turnouts. All of them speak Spanish, and it's really interesting, like the process that goes on there. And I was talking to one of the workers, and he said that most of the plastics are reused for carpets, which is really interesting. I didn't know that. And then he also said that they have an average of like 150 customers every day, which is pretty wild. And then on a day when there's a lot more sun, they say that they can fill a whole one of their bins in like a single day, which is crazy. Like how much plastic and like recycling goes through here.
So for the sorting process, what we had to do was put every type of bottle that we had into a different basket. And so within the baskets, we also sorted glass by color. So in the end, we had a basket for the plastic bottles, metal cans, and then glass bottles that were clear, green, and brown. And then what happened then was those went to a big scale where a worker would weigh out how much material we had, and then based on that, that would determine how much money we got. A lot of the people that we saw there use this as a method of income. A lot of the people there seem to be either at or below the poverty line, or possibly even homeless. So another thing that we noticed was that compared to the amount of time that we spent picking up trash, sorting through it, and then taking it here, the amount of money that we got wasn't as much as we expected, or as much as we would thought that we would get, which kind of explains why people might not be incentivized to recycle, since there isn't really a monetary gain to it, because for a lot of people it is easier to produce more waste, and so if it's not incentivized with money, then there isn't a lot of motivation for most people to do it.
Yeah, another interesting thing is going back to when we were at the turnouts, one of the ladies that we interviewed, she was originally from Europe, and there they would make you weigh the trash that you produce at the end of the month, and you would have to pay a certain amount for them to take that trash away from you. And I think that's something that we really lack here in the United States, that could be like a big incentivizer for people to like reduce their waste.
It is Wednesday, January 16th, 2019, 9:54 a.m., third period, CHS, in our TOK room, and we're grabbing all the garbage we collected, or Fran Cecilio collected on their hike, and we're going to make a nice little art project with it. It's going to be wonderful. Just to reuse all the garbage that is around, see what we can do with it.
The macro problem is, as the countries of the world evolve into middle-class consuming economies, we cannot afford it. American-style consumption will choke the planet. So, it seems to me, IMHO, that within the next 40 years I have to do these transitions, and I suspect it has to begin with your generation.
Digging out all of the trash in the turnout, I thought it only fit to make an art piece from it. So after finding this Altoid container, I made a little mosaic inside for myself to remind myself of the work that we have done, using the broken pieces of glass that we collected and one of the bottle caps. In addition to me just making this piece, the rest of our classmates and peers are making pieces inside that are representative of the work that we have done from digging out all of the trash from the turnouts. And in addition to that, we're having a conversation on ways to reduce like your carbon footprint by eating less red meat and white meat and becoming vegetarian or going vegan, or at least moving towards a more plant-based diet, as opposed to the like levels of consumption of like animals and then us eating those. We're just directly getting food from the earth, so it's like less waste.
One way that I help reduce my footprint on the environment is through becoming a vegetarian, and I feel like this is an important step to make. And even if someone doesn't completely take out all meat from their diet, the reduction of like consuming meat and animal products can help contribute to bettering the environment and making it a better place for years to come in the future.
There's definitely an aspect of it that like eating food in my kind of culture, like the Korean culture, kind of ties in the family together, and part of that food is meat and maybe like Korean barbecue and like bulgogi or yeah, just like stuff like that. I mean, it's like so like culturally like meaningful because it ties us together, brings like the family together. Like we bond through meals and like Korean barbecue and like stuff like that. Meat eating isn't the best thing for our world. It is a very big part of it, especially my culture.
So we talk about plastics a lot when reducing waste, but a lot of people don't know that a lot of our clothing ends up in landfills, a lot of used clothing. And a way that I minimize this is just by selling my old clothes online, or even if you don't want to get into selling them, you can always give away your clothes or shop at thrift stores and kind of participate in reducing fabric waste.
My name's Krista. I'm a senior and I'm really interested in both art and recycling, or just reducing plastic intake, I guess. So this is something I just made right now with some of the stuff that we found on the hike, but I've been doing environmental art for the past few years for my art concentration, just because I'm like really invested in trying to help the environment, and so that ties into how plastic is affecting the environment because it's hurting it a lot. So it's been kind of the focus of a lot of my pieces over the past few years.
In our class this year, our classroom 612, we've kept a single bin just for recycling those like plastic water bottles and cans and things like that we know there's an immediate cash value for. It's just the start, it's upstream. There's a much larger problem with plastics. The Europeans are so far ahead of us. These are this is the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, with plastics. But if you extrapolate plastic usage at the rate we do it at Claremont High School all across the world, it's very hard not to imagine that it has a huge impact on the global ecology long term. There you go. Start with small steps, small revolutions here or there. Talk to people and give it enough time and attention and focus. Here's what's going on. There are two behavioral issues of some magnitude that we have to consider. One is sorting, because sorting errors. What happens when you dump, I don't know, a half-used ketchup bottle into a recycling bin? What happens? It opens up. Everything is ruined, right? And then what about single use? We are, because of convenience, the ease of use, which has been going on since the end of World War II, there is so much addiction single use because of the convenience of it. I can get a fresh fig Newton every day, and I can keep it for 2 or 3 weeks because it's wrapped in a piece of plastic. So, I had this delicious fig Newton. What becomes of the plastic? It's not. What comes? They're not going to go to a sorting line. Oh, look at, they're not going to pick those things out. Off they go to the landfill.
We just finished the recycling into art portion of our project, and it was really great. We kind of bonded as a class and got to understand a little bit more about the process of recycling and how we can reuse things in order to create something that's not just going to be wasted. Our next step is going to be to go interview some of the local politicians and ask them about what they think about climate change and how we can move forward and try and reduce the waste of our population here in Claremont.
Today is currently Thursday, January 17th, and it is after school, and we're about to head down to Claremont City Hall so that we can interview City Councilman Jed Liano about some of the topics that we've been discussing in our class recently.
I'm excited to hear from our local leaders.
I'm really excited to talk to Jed Liano today and ask him questions about the city and their trash can and garbage recycling disposal program. And I'm really interested to hear what he has to say about it and what he can do to help us on our journey today.
Hi everybody, my name is Jed Liano. I am a council member here for the city of Claremont. Combating climate change is probably the single most important issue for my generation. History will probably define my generation by the way that we were informed of and given information about climate change and how we chose to respond. And our city sustainability plan says that all decisions that we make have to be viewed through the lens of sustainability. But I think that we should redirect and focus that and think that every decision we make has to be made through the lens of climate change, because it's the single greatest threat to our species' existence. And we have still time to change our behaviors and change our consumption practices and choices. On one level, we should hope that market factors will turn a corner, where the things that we desire for our planet are also accessible to the mainstream. On our side, as policymakers, we should be trying to seek to incentivize the innovators and incentivize industry. My opinion on how we can achieve growing the economy but also producing a sustainable economy that produces less waste and has a smaller carbon footprint, that has to be driven by innovation. The technology to provide and produce carbon neutral products and products that reduce waste, that has to be driven by innovation. We live in a society where there is a value on things, and that's driven by a market. So I believe that there will be a way for us to take the things that we use regularly and not throw them in the trash. I think that that is going to be driven by engineers and science and people with STEM backgrounds who can find a way to make those things happen. I don't necessarily know that we are always going to have to think about the economy and the environment as being a mutually exclusive and inverse relationship. We can grow the economy in a sustainable way if we offer to consumers products that are competitive and fair and also helpful to the environment and not harmful. The short answer of it is that it has to be driven by research and innovation and technology. I do also think that as policymakers, we ought to be providing the private sector and the people who have the ability to research these topics, we have to give them an incentive to do so. We have to give them support, and we have to give them the ability and the freedom to operate to do that. I think that's how that can be achieved. In Claremont, we have a lot of homeowners, but a lot of homeowners don't have the capital or the access to solar. Last year, the City Council decided to join a CCA, which stands for Community Choice Aggregation. And that means that we're now a part of an organization of several cities where we're going to buy renewable energy and we're going to sell it to our residents. There are a lot of contributors to our carbon footprint. There's commercial travel, there's individual commuting, there's your own home and consumption. But the thing is, your own home and your own consumption is the most impactful thing that you use on a daily basis. And as policymakers, we should be looking at ways to incorporate newer technologies to be net zero when it's economically feasible to do so. The first change would have to be in the way that we plan for and develop new construction. As a state and as municipalities, we have the ability to make decisions on what standards do we hold developers to when they develop new properties. And we should be pursuing policies that allow us to make net zero policies just standard, right? And we should explore the economics of that vigorously. The one initiative that I'm most proud of for our city is our urban forest management program. We have an urban forest of over 26,000 trees. That's almost one tree per person, right? And that wasn't by accident. We have some rules about how we maintain our trees, right? We have a tree policy that is administered by a tree committee, which is made up of citizens. And we don't remove trees unless they're dead, diseased, or hazardous. And that's written into our policy. When trees impact things like sidewalks, we replace the sidewalks because we believe that it's more valuable to keep the tree than to maintain an old sidewalk. The research is clear. Having a vibrant and strong urban forest reduces carbon. It absorbs the harmful effects of carbon, and it also increases property values. It cools our temperatures. It beautifies our city. It has scientifically proven positive effects on people's health, on people's temperaments, on people's mental health and well-being. And so our tree policies as a whole work to make an urban forest in which we as residents, we see the trees as part of our community, right? Just along with the churches and the roads and the police station and the fire department, and then there's our trees. They're there and we have to take care of them. So we have a lot of things, but that's the thing that I'm most proud of. I have a 4-year-old and he's going to kindergarten next year, and we try to teach him that consumption can't just be use and throw away, right? So he drinks out of cups, and instead of throwing away containers, we walk to school so that we're not using carbon fuel and fossil fuels every time we want to go half a mile to his preschool. And we compost. So all of our food waste, we use that to fertilize our shrubs and our plants. And that's not an easy undertaking. It takes a little while to get used to. You know, sometimes you come home and you're like, why are there bananas in my trees, right? Why are there banana peels in my yard? But it takes some getting used to, but it's well worth it. For your peers who in a couple of years will be going on to college, and then after college you'll go on to careers. You are still at that stage in your life where you are planning out what your own future is going to be. But for younger people who are going to be entering into the workforce, we need to be thinking about a future in Claremont and a future in California where the way we go about our daily business, going to work, going to the grocery store, does not involve getting into a car and going to your job and going to your market and using fossil fuels to achieve that basic objective. We have to start thinking past that. Your colleagues in high school, your peers, should be taking a look at how the new young generation of the workforce are going to work, and then you should take it a step further. You know, how are you powering your homes, right? What materials are you using for basic things like washing your clothes and preparing your meals? I hope that you and people your age will be mindful of that, because it's already starting, and we can change this pattern if we just make these habits the way we live. And that's driven by you, consumers and people.
It's definitely just an amazing experience in general. He's just such a great guy, such a relatable guy. I mean, him being younger like us, it's easier to talk to him and have conversation with him about general problems and general issues that need to be discussed. He definitely gave just solid answers. He definitely knew exactly what he was talking about, which I expect from from someone in his position. Definitely a wonderful experience, and I mean, he'll do great things, hopefully.
After discussing some issues about sustainability and climate change with Council Member Jed Liano, we've realized that it's also important to talk to members of the school board because they have a lot of power over the sustainability and waste we produce at the local schools and public schools around Claremont, and that's an important issue, and I think that's probably where we're going to be heading next in terms of this project.
So today's January 18th, and we're back at school after our meeting with Jed Liano to talk to some of the teachers, proctors, workers, and other people at the school today, along with students, to see what initiatives they're taking or if there's anything that they would hope to see in the future.
Okay, I'm Mr. Tucker. I teach biology and AP biology here at CHS. I think one of the things that they have done well is they're really monitoring the water usage here on campus. They're not overwatering locations. They're also, once they installed the solar panels, that really puts us, in a really good position to help, reduce the amount of energy that we're pulling from the ecosystem. Other efforts that I haven't really seen, and this isn't just the school or the district, but it really comes from the city. Recycling efforts are pretty much non-existent. You'll see the recycle bins all around campus, but they're filled with trash, and no effort is made by anyone in administration at the school or the district or even at the city to help recycle materials. Our ability to trap rainfall and use that as a viable resource is also another really important step to helping our society to build and avoid serious droughts and stuff like that. We do our winter shutdowns, we do our spring shutdowns, our summer shutdowns, so we're reducing the energy costs. In my classroom I use all LED bulbs, so I don't even use the fluorescent light bulbs anymore. Incandescents are ancient. And so they do a good job of keeping the classes maintained and making sure that we're using as little energy as possible, a variety of things that I think work well. I mean, there's that one big elephant in the room, recycling. So that's kind of the one bummer.
Hi, I'm Sven Drexler, I'm a senior. In general, and in years past, I've noticed there's not really an effort, major effort to do much for recycling. Most of the time the recycling bins are just oh, this is trash, and we'll just throw it away in the normal trash can, but it's a recycling bin. But it's mostly that either teachers are too lazy to do it, or they're too busy to do it, so they don't really have time to do much with the recycling. So in general, the mood of recycling at school is kind of just pushed to the side, and it's unfortunate because there's a lot more that we could do as a school. Even just small things like placing bins into the classroom and then taking it and recycling it. There's different things you can do, and then we're just not doing that. I think there's also a lot of things students can do to help with that instead of just oh, someone else will do it. There's students like us that can push forward and maybe actually do something.
Hey, I'm Mr. Thomas, social science teacher, and I really do think that the school, and not just Claremont Unified School District, but all school districts should be a little bit more active in terms of trying to reduce our carbon footprint. I know that it's costly, a lot of the recycling programs, and it takes effort, but I think the cost is going to be far greater in the future if we don't do something now. Plus, most of it is just effort. I have a recycling bin in my classroom, and it's amazing how many people will still throw recyclables away in the garbage can, and it's right next to the recycling bin. So just taking the time and the effort to do that can really make a big difference.
my name is Noémie Poliquin and I'm a senior at Claremont High School in the IB program. Some things I've seen around school that are just really great and I think we should improve upon and just continue doing are definitely the recycling. I think it's a big issue that the school doesn't have recycling, but classes like Mr. O'Neill's or Mr. Thomas's, they have an extra bin for recycling and I think that's just great and we need to continue that. Personally at home, we also have a bin that we have in the garage where we put all our plastic bottles or cans and then we actually drive and bring them to a recycling center in Upland. So I think, I think everybody can do a little bit and I think sometimes people decide not to do anything because they just think, oh, it's not going to matter if I'm the only one doing it. But if everybody pitches in a little bit and does a little bit every day, I definitely think we can make a great impact.
My name's Ryan Pettibone. I'm the physics teacher on campus. A couple of years ago, the school installed solar panels in the parking lot, and they made a claim that it was going to save the school district a certain amount of money, and I was interested in whether they were being honest or not. So I went out and I measured the size of the solar panels and also estimated how much energy the solar panels would absorb, and I found that the school district was pretty accurate in terms of the amount of money they saved. Obviously that's going to reduce the carbon footprint of the school because if the electricity is being generated in a clean way, it's not being generated with a coal plant. One of the things that I think would reduce our carbon footprint is if there was centralized control of the air conditioning so that they could turn it off everywhere within the school from the office, and then we wouldn't have to worry about a teacher forgetting and leaving the air conditioning on all day. Then the other idea I had to reduce the carbon footprint would be to just improve bike safety around campus so more kids would be encouraged to ride their bikes to school or walk to school instead of driving their cars.
I'm Scott. I'm Scott. I think the school should mostly just recycle.
So after talking to some of the teachers and students at CHS, what a lot of them mentioned was implementing a recycling program at CHS because they figured that that would be a really simple way to cut down on our carbon footprint. And so after talking with Jed Liano, he said that that wasn't really his area of expertise, so maybe if we can schedule an interview with either Dr. O'Connor or the superintendent, that'll be our next step. And then going along with that, we also have learned a little bit about the solar panels that the school implemented and that those are actually kind of for a monetary gain for the school as they lease the land to the power company, so that was very interesting to learn that a lot of the initiatives that the school does take to limit its carbon footprint are actually for an economic purpose and not for helping the environment, but rather to save them $1. So if we can find a way to go about this economically, I think that that would be the way to really make a change at the school. So it is currently 7 a.m. on Saturday, January 19th.
It's been 6 days since we picked up trash on the Baldy turnout and gone through the whole process. And right now we have behind us the rest of the trash that the recycling center was not able to take, and we're gonna take it through its process and bring it to the landfill directly. On our way driving down to the landfill, we see just a box in the middle of the street here. And we decided to come back and get it just to again prove the point, people are just producing more and more trash, and now there's just trash in the middle of the street on their way to landfills.
So we just went up the hill back there to the Olinda landfill, and we realized after speaking with the worker that we are technically not allowed to bring our garbage there because we are not residents of Orange County. Other things that we noticed besides that was that the landfill's kind of nestled on this hill right above a lot of houses, and we're actually currently in the parking lot of a park that's just like half a mile down the hill from the landfill. And there's a noticeable smell in the area, but it is pretty well hidden. So going forward, what we're going to do is research other landfills in the area that either might take our garbage or possibly come back later in the day and tell them that we do in fact live in Orange County just because this is the closest one. So we're currently in Placentia, California, and we just visited another waste removal facility. And so they said that the minimum that we could bring is 1 ton, and that would cost us about $100 to get rid of. So what we're going to do is head back to the original landfill and see if we can infiltrate that facility and dump our garbage there. Otherwise, what we'll do is go to another landfill later in the day and see if we can dump our waste there. We came back to the Olinda landfill, which is just up the hill here, and we attempted to say that we were Orange County residents, but we did not have any documents proving that. So what we're going to do now is research some more at home and figure out if there is a landfill that we can go to, because from our initial searches on our phones, from what we could discern, there isn't a landfill that is designated for Claremont. A lot of the ones in LA only extend as far as Pasadena, and the ones in the vicinity of Claremont are only for San Bernardino or Orange County residents, so we're not even sure at this point if there's a place that we can dump the waste that we picked up off the mountain, but we're going to try. Okay, so I'm currently back at home, and after going through the process of figuring out how to dump the waste at the landfills and going to all the different locations, it makes a little bit more sense as to why people would be more inclined to just dump it over the side at the turnouts on Baldy Road. So going forward, something we will continue to investigate and kind of pursue is how we can make this process easier for citizens, especially in Claremont, because then obviously, if it's easier, then people will be more inclined to do it, and if it's also cost-effective, that can really limit the amount of waste that people produce and output into the environment. Alright, so it is January 19th. It's later in the day after Leo and I went to the landfill this morning. And after what we saw there and the difficulties that we had kind of getting rid of the waste, there was something that I wanted to do with the waste to kind of make it useful or to make a statement possibly. So I had an idea with the truck door that Leo got out of the ditch on the day that we picked up trash, that could be made into kind of a statement piece that has messages and possible things that CHS could implement that I could then put on the truck door and put it up in Central Quad at school and see if that would influence anyone or maybe just bring it to people's attention. And now it's a little bit later, and I just identified kind of an action plan, an outline for how I'm going to address this art project, and now I'm about to go into my backyard and gun on it. And the hope is that it'll have important information about climate change, and it'll also have ways that people can make a change by themselves, and then things that I'd like to see CHS implement. What we're going to start with is taping off the sections that will identify the different purposes of this piece. Top will have a collage made out of past wolf packets that I have found, and the other pieces will be reusing some paints and materials that I had laying around the house, and they will kind of show what people can do. Just printed out some data and articles about climate change and things that people can do, and now we're going to cut these out to serve as the overlay on the portion that was made with part of the wolf packet right there. After 1 to 2 hours of planning, carrying through this project, the truck door is done, and so the plan is to hopefully put this up Monday night in Central Quad. We're hoping that it doesn't get taken down by morning workers. We'll then go and see what the reaction is.
Alright, it's January 21st, around 2 o'clock, and we're here today at the local Claremont colleges to talk to one of the environmentalist professors about their stance on climate change and what they think people should be doing in order to help combat that.
My name is Char Miller. I teach in the Environmental Analysis and History programs at Pomona College. So part of the way of thinking about sustainability is it's cross-generational. It is not just about us now in this time, but it's about future generations, and it's also about correcting the problems of the past. So it's like this dialogue between past, present, and future, and so part of it is knowing that chronology. Part of it is also better understanding that there are, in fact, things that we can do that are going to make it better for my generation to leave a better place than what we arrived in, and for you and in high school and beyond, to be thinking about not just this time and place, but also your grandchildren or that generation. But I think that's one of the ways to start to think about this in a theoretical way, and then start to move towards how we apply that theory to a set of problems. I think the other thing that's really huge, and it plays into this, is waste management. It's a dirty topic in every sense of the word, but if we don't figure out how to consume less, then we're going to choke on our own debris. And so we're going to have to start to think in ways that we currently in the White House can't think, which is internationally, globally, in terms of partnerships and collaborations. And so some of this is recognizing the big problems, some of it is thinking about the politics of solving those problems, and some of it is simply looking at your trash can at home and asking yourself, why did I buy that? But towns like Claremont need to be doing their part, and aggressively so, and that means starting at the local level, local level, every single household, every kitchen, every waste bin, every rooftop. So we really need to rethink the very footprint we own, whether we own a house or in an apartment. All of that needs to be put together, and that's actually doable. We can put solar on every roof. We could create and capture water, because that's what this natural system is. Do we have the political will? Do we have the social capital? Do we have the desire to do these kinds of things? And you know, people are slow. We think of ourselves as being really sentient species. We're actually kind of stupid compared to others. The fish have already figured out the climate change has changed their feeding habits, and they've got to move. So they're moving. Birds have figured this out. Human beings are about the only ones that haven't figured out that they need to act. Food is at the heart of some of these discussions that we've been having. Meat in particular has had a profound effect on climate change. Methane gas, as we know, one of the key indicators of a climate that is in distress. And so some of this is about being conscientious about every single act you take. And that's hard every time you turn on the water, every time you open up the refrigerator, every time you think about the air that you're breathing. But we have to. Beef is one thing, automobile emissions, transportation is another. It's about 20% of all greenhouse gases comes from transportation. So that's not just our car, and I don't care if you're driving a Prius or what you're driving, to build those things requires a lot of emissions also. Everything that we do is going to have deleterious consequences. So you've got to figure out, you have to calculate which is worse. And what does that mean? But that is being a citizen in a climate-changed world. And that is our obligation, not again to ourselves alone, but to those who are following us, because every act we make stays. It doesn't go anywhere. So nothing disappears. That being the case, and that's kind of panic-inducing. It's like a little scary, but I think accept the scariness, accept the fear that comes with this, and realize that there's a way to lessen it, and that's the goal. So let's look at an institution like the high school. Think about waste, water, and energy. Just take those three things. Every classroom has lights. Where is that coming from? How is it possible to reduce that use? Equally true in cafeterias, equally true with the stuff that we bring onto campus and then we throw away. Is all of the paper recycled? If it isn't, it should be. If food isn't being composted, it should be. And the institution, that is to say the school district, could actually do this faster than the city. I walk Claremont every single morning at the exact hours when all of you are going off to school. The amount of emissions in this one small town must spike between 7:30 and 8:15. So why are we doing that? Why do we not have buses? I know it's basically been stopped all over California for cost. You shift the cost of buses to the individual households. But in doing that, you then create greater emissions that everybody absorbs. And so we're using the air as a sink. You just toss up stuff up there because nobody has to pay for it, and so it's a commons, and you just screw it over because you can. And all of that, it seems to me, can be shifted because it's behavior. And behavior can be changed, and if we change our behavior, we can change the world. Living wastefully is a problem in itself, but it's also a problem to figure out how to move people who don't see their lives as wasteful and their actions as deleterious to the world. And I'm a big fan of shame and guilt. I think it works really well, but only if the recipient thinks that shame and guilt work. But education doesn't always work either. It doesn't always penetrate, and there's no better place to look at these campuses and how little they have done to know that even though in principle we all support this thing, acting on it is a hell of a lot harder. So part of this is also about the science and getting the science to be able to be communicated to people so that they understand the broader context of the problems that we're trying to address. So some of this is education, and science is a piece of that. Some of that is, again, the social-based marketing. How do we talk to people who either accept or don't accept, who despise or thoroughly have faith in these conversations? And the broader group of people for whom technology is going to solve the problem. One of the ways that came home to me most deliberately was 10 years ago, went with a group of students and colleagues to the landfill and spent 2 hours there watching 18-wheeler after 18-wheeler after 18-wheeler come and dump a full 18-wheeler load full of crap into the landscape. I'm looking at that going, I am never going to buy anything again in my life. Obviously that changed 20 minutes later, but that image is haunting. But all of that comes back to our roles as citizens, as consumers, and as a generation, as a cohort, thinking not just about now, but about future nows. And I think once we put ourselves in that timeline, and once we start to think about our relationships past, present, and future, we have the chance to make decisions that we might not have made, and those chances might allow other generations to make decisions they might not have made. And presumably, hopefully, those will be better decisions that will make it possible for the human species, like every other species, to flourish here on Earth.
It's Monday, January 21st, later in the day after we had our nice interview with Professor Miller at Pomona College. It is currently 9:59 and I just got back from dropping the painted truck door in Central Quad at school. So we'll see tomorrow if it is a good idea, a bad idea, or a flop. I don't know. Didn't film it because this video is getting kind of long, but we'll see what the general reaction is at school tomorrow.
Today is Tuesday, January 22nd, after school, and today we're going to be meeting with the Sustainability Coordinator at Pomona College, Alexis Reyes. And we're really excited to see what she has to say about the environment and sustainability around Claremont.
Hi, my name is Alexis Reyes. I'm the director of the Sustainability Office at Pomona College. So I think there's a lot of advantages in general in the phrase reduce, reuse, recycle, because a lot of people already know those words and know that behavior. I think reduce is super important because before you even produce something or buy something, you should figure out if you actually need it. And then even with reuse, you should try to buy something that's like a high quality, product that you can have a longer lifespan. And then recycle is kind of like that last stage, which it's definitely good to recycle, but of course with the economy and our relationship with where we send our recycling, we're not really always sure if it is going to get recycled or how intense of a process it is with like energy and water and whatnot. So I think it's definitely good to emphasize reduce and reuse and think about those things first. So even though there's mostly advantages in thinking about using our resources wisely and even thinking of like creative ways of if we need something or how we should have something, I think that's a good benefit. But we can't be naive to think that if we recycle something, we've like done our job, we get a gold star, and we've done everything we can, because there's definitely some pitfalls with that. For me, I started getting involved with sustainability when I heard about like these big picture problems of like energy and waste and water running out and like emissions and all those different things. And I think it is easy to see those really big overarching issues and think about how I personally can take part in that. But it's really important because even though I'm one individual, collectively all of us together do have a big impact. So I think it's important for students at whatever age they are to start, and even if that means starting small, I think that those changes add up to something really big. And if everyone took the idea of just like why participate because I'm just one person, then nothing would happen, and I think that's a very negative future and outlook for the world. So I think it's really good if we do think about our actions collectively and work together. We need to move away from fossil fuels and look into cars that are powered alternatively, whether that's with electric batteries or fuel cells or even like other crazy innovations that people are looking at. I think environmental health also relates a lot to water. I think in the United States in general we have fairly good access to clean potable water, but across the world that's not the case. For me, environmental health intersects with people a lot, and so that's like really where I see a lot of those environmental health issues. Climate change comes from a lot of different angles, and I think it's important for people to work at those different angles as well and work together. So I think one big one is definitely like the building sector. So how are we building our buildings? How much energy are they using? Water, things like that. I think that transportation is also huge, looking at the emissions that directly come from automobiles, but also like planes and boats, like freights, things like that. And then I know that the food industry is also really impactful as well. So whether that's like the cow industry with like the methane contributions, but also like the water that they consume and the land that they take and the food and all of that. I think that's like a really big issue that people aren't as aware of. What does it look like to reduce that consumption, but also find like creative and alternative ways of getting like plant-based protein to people that tastes good and is healthy and sustainable, and just really does a lot more for the environment. Pomona College, we're most known for having our carbon neutrality goal by 2030. So that means whatever emissions we produce in the form of energy, which is electric and gas, and then also transportation, and then a couple other like smaller areas as well, we're gonna offset that. So first is like to reduce those emissions in those areas as much as possible, and then to offset the rest through renewable energy, and then if we need to purchase carbon credits, then we would do that as well. So our goal for that is for 2030, and it's a pretty ambitious goal, but I feel like it's pretty doable. We have a really strong support system. We have a lot of students that are working on specific projects that help us meet our goals. And then in general, our office has a lot of student workers that have a lot of initiatives that they plan. So whether it's something small like hosting an upcycling workshop that looks at how to repair your clothes versus buying something new, or how to cook like a healthy vegetarian meal on a budget, little like lifestyle things, to like larger issues like getting involved in political campaigns, writing letters, making phone calls, things like that. So we're pretty versatile, and our students are really passionate about the environment and sustainability, and so pretty much whatever topic they're interested in, if we have the ability to produce like an event or support them in any way, we're going to do it, and whether that's like a small project or a large project, and we get a lot of other people involved with that, which I think is really fun. I think we have a long way to go with the United States. I think things that I really admire happen a lot in Europe, and so namely like the food industry. Like I think the fact that some countries in Europe at least have labeling of GMOs on their foods, that people can at least see what they're buying, not necessarily that there's like a ban, but even just being able to see if what they're buying has GMOs, and I think is really big. I think also alternative energy in the other countries is really strong, so whether that's from like solar or wind or even like biofuels, I think those are really admirable. And then I think the waste stream as well. So I know that Germany and Japan have really good waste streams for like diverting their waste, collecting it. They're like really strong recycling programs, where ours in the US is just very, very sad. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement. Yeah, I think it's going to take a lot of work, whether that's like bottom up through like citizens advocating for things, or top down with an administration that supports these like larger issues that affect both the planet and people.
So it's January 22nd, 7:47, the afternoon after we had the nice interview with the sustainability coordinator at Pomona College, and this assignment is due tomorrow in class, so I will finish editing it. In the end, I don't know if this video was as coherent as I would have liked, but I hope that the message is that we are producing too much waste for our planet to handle. And recycling is kind of a band-aid fix. It's a really great thing to do, but in the end, what we really need to do is reduce how much waste we produce and how much we consume. Some things that weren't included in the video, a lot of what we picked up that wasn't able to be recycled was really hard to dispose of. So we had like a container of motor oil that my dad had to get rid of in a biohazard container. We have e-waste. We found a laptop and a Dell computer. We have things like microwaves that the city just won't dispose of, so we have to find a special way to dispose of that so that we make sure that it gets to where it needs to go. We have things like a piece of a brick wall and a bowling ball, which feel kind of wrong to throw into the trash. Other things besides that, with the truck door that I put some stuff on and put up at school, didn't seem to really matter. Was kind of expecting that. It's kind of hard to get people to stop and look at something and read something. I mean, yeah, I don't know, maybe that is kind of representative of this whole issue, because certainly everybody sees it, but not everybody is willing to act on it. Something that I took home through this whole process is just how laborious it was to go from picking up the trash all day to then taking all day to sort through it, taking all day to get it to the recycling center, taking all day to try to figure out where to dump the stuff that wasn't able to be recycled. So yeah, I mean, for CHS, the sustainability coordinator at Pomona was horrified to hear that we were not recycling. She actually graduated from CHS in 2009, and she was just appalled that we wouldn't be doing such a thing. I understand that there's an obvious monetary concern with something like that, but it seems that certainly the long-term cost is our health and well-being. If we don't address climate change now, it will become a public health problem, which will have serious impacts on all of us. So yeah, I don't know. If you're watching this video, that means that you made it pretty far. But I think the most effective thing for climate change is to have your own personal experience, because you don't forget that. You can watch somebody else have theirs, but when you really feel that call to action, I think that's the most effective thing.
Now to a dire warning about climate change. According to a new report, experts say that we have until 2030 to avoid catastrophe. It also says if unprecedented changes are not made and made soon, there will be irreversible damage to the planet.
We've warmed the planet since 1900.
More than 15,000 scientists are sounding an alarm about climate change.
While the world continues to debate how to handle climate change, the facts are crystal clear. Climate change is real.
We've got a decline in fresh water, unsustainable marine fisheries.
Now the new climate change report just released. 13 federal agencies ramping up urgent warnings of a severe threat to America's health and economy.
This year's deadly wildfires and monster storms. Terrifying signs of things to come. But the administration's own scientists now say significant immediate action is required.
Late tonight, the White House pushing back on the government's own scientists.
This is maybe a tenth of what's down there.
We cannot afford it. American-style consumption will choke the planet.
I can tell you that addressing and combating climate change is probably the single most important issue for my generation.
The cost is going to be far greater in the future if we don't do something now.
Part of what we need to do is turn that energy towards a more sustainable, more sort of resilient world. And if we take that hint, God knows nature is giving us every hint we could possibly need to act, we'll be in a better shape.